this many of you were going to show up today, I probably would have prepared something. We got a lot to talk about in the time we have. Let's do a timeline. Let's talk about stem cell research, where it began, where it is today, and where it might be going. Let's go back to 1960 when at the University of Toronto, a researcher by the name of James Till announces that he has for the first time identified the embryonic stem cell. It doesn't mean a lot to the general public because they don't even know at that point what a stem cell is. But the scientific community takes a strong interest in it. Now, you know how slowly the wheels of medicine turn. So it would be 37 years into the future before a major event caught the international attention. Do you know what it was? If you don't, I'll give you a hint. Well, hello. Albert the sheep was born, cloned by the world's leading embryologist at the Edinburgh University in Edinburgh, Scotland. And all of a sudden, speculation went rampant. People were wondering, you know, my dog Elmer, could I bring him back if we could clone him? So wife was thinking if my husband was here, I'd love him better. So things were getting a little bit out of hand. Now in that same year, 1997, something did happen that made all of us aware of stem cell research. We have a favorite actor. Christopher Reeve has been impacted with spinal injury. He's a quadriplegic. Christopher Reeve goes before Congress and the United States, sees a face on embryonic research for the first time. Now, Christopher had been mentored by embryologists. He had been coached. He had, none of these thoughts were probably his own, and through no fault of his, he told the world and the public some information that turned out it was not accurate at the time, and now, 12 years later, we find out it for sure was not accurate. His mentors have told him to say that diseases like Parkinson's and MS, diabetes 1, spinal injury, could one day be healed with an embryonic stem cell. Had he said, all of the diseases that I just mentioned would one day be healed with stem cells, and had he not differentiated between embryonic stem cells, we at this point would be even further ahead. As I said, it was no fault of his own. There's a difference between an embryonic stem cell and an adult cell. It's been not much reported until more recently. I think everybody here knows the difference. The problems that confront embryonic research, and certainly take any moral or ethical or religious issues and put them aside for the discussion. What confronts and has confronted embryonic research is three main scientific factors that have never been overcome. Number one, the embryonic cell creates tumors. And we know that in the animal studies, wherever they performed the safety studies with the animals, tumors showed up in the brains in different parts of the bodies. So that was the one drawback. The second drawback is an embryonic stem cell is rejected as coming from a foreign source. So anybody getting an embryonic stem cell would have to be on immune suppressive drugs for the rest of their life, and every one of us here is interested in enhancing our immune systems. There was another factor with an embryonic stem cell, and that was it would migrate, because it's such a prolific cell, it would migrate to parts of the body that they were never intended to go. Every one of the diseases that he identified before Congress, Parkinson's, MS, diabetes 1, rheumatoid arthritis, spinal injury, every one of those diseases right now today is being healed in adult stem cell trials, of which there are 3,800 going on right now. I don't know how much the public is aware of that. See, there's no money to be made when you use your own bone marrow stem cells. 1,800 of those trials are bone marrow stem cells for your own body. The government understands, but pharmaceutical companies, if they're not involved, are not going to be pushing that type of therapy. There's been one trial that the FDA okayed. After all these years, they okayed a trial for spinal injury. And you might recall, Geron Corporation had developed a drug, and they would start this spinal injury trial in 2010. Well, less than a year later, November 15th, Geron terminated their study. That was the first embryonic study ever. Now I want to share with you, because many of you, if you have my research reports, have heard me talk about it on the radio and in the reports, about a gentleman, a scientist by the name of Carlos Lima. I asked Dr. Lima, why isn't the whole world doing not your trial, but just performing your procedure, because nobody's been injured by it, and 165 are walking or learning to walk. He said, Christian, there is no money to be made. There's no drugs to be administered for the rest of your life. You get the treatment one time, as with heart failure, which I hope we can talk about. One treatment, you don't need continued medication. You do need rehab to teach the muscles and coordinate the muscles and the nerve connections to function. So that is spinal injury. In that timeline, let's go to 1998. James Thompson, scientist at the University of Wisconsin, makes a new discovery. He says, I have isolated the embryo for the first time. And that had a great import to scientists all over the world in that area. It was something that they were waiting for. With that information, they could move a little further ahead. He had isolated the embryo. Now, 9 years later, in 2007, he makes another announcement. This time he's been working with Shinya Yamanaka, a leading scientist in Japan, and together they have found a new stem cell. A new stem cell that would avoid all religious, moral, ethical issues, would not create tumors, would not be rejected by the body, would not migrate to other parts of the body. It would be a win-win situation. Robert Lanza, a leading scientist in embryology, said this discovery is like turning lead into gold. Dr. Ian Wilmot, who is now Sir Ian Wilmot, he has since been knighted since he closed Dolly the sheep, makes an announcement to the world. He said, I will no longer pursue embryonic stem cell research. He said, it's not that I have an objection to it. I have no moral issue with it and no ethical. It's just that we have a new way that is very simple and avoids all of the downsides of the embryonic. Literally taking skin cells from your body, reverting them back to almost the point when they would become an embryonic cell, is an induced pluripotent stem cell. And that's what he is encouraging to this day, that more scientists turn away and operate in that fashion.